In this video, I just want to show you a couple of examples of how to do the types of problems in the homework assignment. Um, I know that it's been a couple of weeks since we've done these types of problems, and so even if you were in class the day that we did these, it might help to just have a little bit of a couple more examples to look at. So here we have a population with a mean of 38 and a standard deviation of 4.7. And we want to know the z-score of a certain age within this population. I took this from your homework assignment, so I'll change the number to 30. Let's see, here I said 38. Let's change it to 35. So to get the z-score of 35, you just use the z-score formula. You take the number you're turning into a z-score, subtract it by the mean, and divide by the standard deviation, which are provided. So 35 minus 38 is negative 3. Negative 3 divided by 4.7. .638, and I said to round to two places, so since this is an 8, the 3 rounds up to a 4, and the answer is 0.64. Actually, negative 0.64, because when you divide a negative number by a positive number, you get a negative answer. So that's the answer to two decimal places. Now I want you to make I want us to make a diagram, and this diagram I want us to make is it's not the same type of diagram that I showed you in the video for the in-class assignment. Um, it's the same diagram I showed you a couple of weeks ago, in which you actually mark off the individual person with an X. So let me remind you how to make this type of diagram. So what we'll do is we'll put the mean of 38. We'll put its z-score, which is 0. The mean always has a z-score of 0. And then here, we'll mark off um, plus 1, plus 2, those two z-scores. And try to not make it too crowded like I did here. Try to give it some breathing room a little bit. Like, so I'll put this out here. And right here, I'll put -1 and -2. And I want us to mark off our age of 35, which is what the question asked about. So since 35 has a z-score of negative 0.64, it's roughly here, about halfway between 0 and -1. It's a little bit closer to -1, but about halfway between. So that's the individual age that we turned into a z-score. Now, the last thing I want you to include is a little bit of labeling down here that shows how far apart these z-scores are. So remember, we're going up and down by the standard deviation, which would mean that this is a distance of, well, 4.7, because that's the standard deviation. Right? So this z-score of plus 1 is really just 4.7 above the mean of 38. So, well, let's see. 38 plus 4.7 is 42.7. So if a person's age was right here at positive 1, that just means that they're 42.7 years old. They're 4.7 above the mean. And if you go up by another 4.7 years, you get to a person who's at this z-score. So if you do, let's see, 38 plus 4.7 plus 4.7 again, you would get the age that goes along with this z-score. And let's label these distances, because if you start at 38 and you go 4.7 lower, you're going to get to this point right here. And if you go down another 4.7, you get to this age right here. So just make a diagram like this one. If you don't want to, if you don't want to make it this way, there's one other option that I could allow you to do. So if you want, you could just actually do 38 plus 4.7 and actually figure out what this number is and put it there, and then take that number and add 4.7 again and actually solve for this number, and then do 38 minus 4.7 and get this number, and then do minus 4.7 again and get this number. If you did all of that work, you could actually list out, you could actually label all of the ages under here, and then just put their z-scores underneath all of the ages and make two separate rows. And then you could just leave out this part down here entirely, because, well, if you make the diagram that way, I can already see that you understand that these numbers are 4.7 apart. So that's another option. Just whichever one you want to do. I showed you this option first because it's a little bit faster. You don't have to do all of the math that you would have to do if you wanted to do it the other way. So yeah, the first two problems on the homework number 6 are this type of a problem. Then after that, we have a few other types of problems. Let's just take a quick look at some of the others. We have a couple of probability questions. So you just have to know the basic probability formula to solve these. We covered it in class, and it's also covered in some videos under pages. Down right here, we have a couple of combination and permutation questions. I gave you a video showing you how to calculate the number of possible combinations and the number of possible permutations. Those videos are also under pages. For each one of these types of problems, you have to think about if order matters or if order doesn't matter. If the order doesn't make a difference, it's asking for the number of combinations. If order does make a difference, then it's number of permutations. So basically, if it's just asking for the number of possible groups, it's a combination question. If it's asking for the number of possible sequences or the number of possible arrangements, that's a permutation question. And problem number 7, it's saying the digits 1 to 9 are available for you to choose from, and you're going to take 5 of them and create a 5-digit number. And it's asking you how many possible ways are there to do that. And also, so you have to figure out how many digits there are between 1 and 9, because that's the number of items that you're selecting from. Also, I said that no digit can be repeated. So in this problem, a number like 12254 is not allowed, because if it was allowed, we would actually have to do a different type of formula that we're not covering in this class. Here we have a different type of probability question. So make sure to watch the video on binomial probability, and if this situation is if it fits the type of situation I talked about in the binomial probability video, then use that formula. So decide if that's appropriate, and if it is, then use that for this problem. And yeah, that's it for this assignment.